In the vast tapestry of World War II, a unique chapter unfolds as German prisoners of war found themselves on American soil. This narrative focuses on the intersection of war, culture, and sports, examining how German POWs were temporarily woven into the fabric of American civilian life. This exploration begins at Camp McCoy, Wisconsin, in the year 1944. Camp McCoy, located in Monroe County, Wisconsin, was one of the numerous military installations repurposed to house German POWs during World War II. Originally established in 1909, the camp expanded significantly during the war, ultimately accommodating up to 4,000 prisoners. The layout was typical of POW camps, featuring barracks, administrative buildings, mess halls, and recreational areas, all surrounded by a perimeter fence and guarded by military personnel. The camp was overseen by units from the U.S. Army Military Police, ensuring security and order. The War Department, through circulars and directives, had established a framework for the utilization of POW labor. The prisoners at Camp McCoy were engaged in a variety of work assignments, primarily focused on supporting the war effort through agricultural labor. Wisconsin's farms, canneries, and lumber industries benefited from this influx of labor, as local manpower was diverted to military service. Agricultural labor contracts detailed the specific tasks assigned to the prisoners, who harvested crops, worked in canneries, and assisted in lumber processing. These assignments were meticulously logged, reflecting the war's complex logistics and the vital role of POW labor in sustaining the American home front. Prisoners received compensation for their labor in the form of wages, albeit in a controlled manner. The payment system involved the issuance of coupons, which prisoners could use to purchase items at the camp canteen. The canteen offered limited goods, including toiletries, tobacco, and snacks, reflecting the rationing policies that governed civilian life during the war. The War Department circulars outlined the rationing system, emphasizing the equitable distribution of resources among both the civilian population and POWs. Civilian attitudes toward the German prisoners were mixed and documented in various records, including local newspapers and Red Cross inspections. Some civilians expressed resentment, viewing the POWs as enemies, while others saw them as individuals caught in the tide of war. Recorded incidents of hostility were sporadic, but not uncommon, often stemming from the tension between supporting the war effort and witnessing enemy soldiers on American soil. The Red Cross played a pivotal role, conducting inspections to ensure compliance with the Geneva Convention and advocating for humane treatment of the prisoners. The camp's disciplinary system operated with military precision, maintaining order and addressing infractions through established protocols. Medical access was provided, with a designated infirmary staffed by medical personnel to address the health needs of the prisoners. Mail services allowed communication between the POWs and their families in Germany, subject to censorship by both American and German authorities. Education programs, often facilitated by the YMCA, offered classes in various subjects, including English, mathematics, and vocational skills, aimed at equipping the prisoners with knowledge for a future beyond the war. Recreation was an essential component of camp life, providing a semblance of normalcy amid the confines of captivity. The YMCA played a significant role, supplying sports equipment and organizing activities. It was within this context that the POWs were introduced to American sports culture, a phenomenon that would leave a lasting impression. One particular event stands out in the camp's history: the opportunity for a group of prisoners to work as cleanup crews at a nearby baseball stadium. This assignment, detailed in transportation logs and labor records, was part of a broader effort to integrate POW labor into civilian industries. The prisoners, escorted by guards, traveled to the stadium after a game to perform cleanup duties, an experience that exposed them to an unfamiliar facet of American life. The stadium, bustling with tens of thousands of fans, presented a stark contrast to the war-torn environment from which the POWs had come. They observed families, workers, and students gathered to watch civilian athletes compete in a game that was both leisurely and spirited. The absence of propaganda speeches, military displays, or patriotic hymns was unexpected. Instead, the sounds of laughter, debates over player statistics, and vendors selling hot dogs and soda filled the air. The guards accompanying the prisoners provided context, explaining that sports were an integral part of American life, not merely a distraction from the ongoing global conflict. This notion was conveyed through the environment itself as the stadium buzzed with a sense of normalcy and community. The POWs witnessed firsthand how America was engaged in a world war while simultaneously maintaining its cultural and recreational pursuits. In contrast to the total war effort in Germany, where resources were relentlessly channeled into the war machine, the American approach revealed a society capable of balancing the demands of war with the preservation of civilian life. This realization, though not explicitly articulated, was embedded in the systems and environments the POWs encountered. As the war drew to a close, the focus shifted to post-war repatriation and re-education programs. These initiatives, outlined in directives from the War Department and the U.S. Army Provost Marshal General, aimed at preparing POWs for reintegration into civilian life. The programs included educational courses, discussions on democracy, and vocational training, reflecting a broader effort to reshape post-war Germany. In summary, the experience of German POWs in American camps and their exposure to the cultural phenomenon of sports offers a unique lens through which to view the complexities of wartime life. The systems and environments they navigated, from agricultural labor to baseball stadiums, reveal a profound juxtaposition between two nations at war, each with its own approach to balancing conflict with civilian life. Through this factual narrative, the story of German POWs in America unfolds, grounded in historical records and the undeniable realities of a world at war. The experience of German prisoners of war at Camp McCoy, Wisconsin during World War II offers a unique lens through which to examine the cultural dichotomy between American and German wartime societies. As these prisoners interacted with American civilians and were exposed to facets of American life, such as sports events, they encountered a world that starkly contrasted with the total war environment of Germany, a dichotomy that not only influenced their daily experiences, but also shaped their perceptions and perhaps even their futures. The exposure of German POWs to American sports, particularly baseball, served as a notable episode in this cultural exchange. Tasked with cleaning up after games, the prisoners initially approached these events with a sense of incredulity. In their experience, such large gatherings would typically be accompanied by state-driven agendas, emphasizing military prowess and nationalistic fervor. The German societal framework, deeply entrenched in the wartime narrative, saw sports as a tool for propaganda and physical conditioning for the war effort. However, the American baseball game presented an entirely different spectacle, one where family life, leisure, and commerce intersected with the ongoing global conflict. This divergence was both bewildering and enlightening for the POWs, who were accustomed to viewing entertainment as an extension of the war apparatus rather than an escape from it. As the German POWs worked amidst the remnants of exuberant crowds, they were struck by the nonchalance with which Americans engaged with wartime realities. The conversations overheard were often lighthearted, focusing on player statistics, game strategy, or the latest standings of the teams. This was a stark departure from the grim focus on war and survival that dominated the German home front, where every resource and effort was directed toward the war machine. The American approach to life, characterized by a compartmentalization of wartime duties and personal leisure, was a revelation. It demonstrated a resilience and optimism that stood in sharp contrast to the rigid, all-consuming nature of the German war effort. This juxtaposition was not lost on the prisoners. American guards tasked with overseeing the POW labor sometimes provided explanations, albeit within the limits of security protocols. They conveyed that sports were an integral part of American life, serving as a unifying force and a means to maintain morale. Unlike Germany, where the war dictated the rhythm of daily life and entertainment was largely subordinated to propaganda, the United States managed to sustain a semblance of normalcy amidst the conflict. This normalcy acted as a bulwark against the psychological strains of war, offering a model of resilience that intrigued the POWs. The POWs' experiences were further enriched by their limited interactions with American civilians. These encounters, though often brief and regulated, offered additional insights into the American way of life. The civilians, representative of a diverse society, displayed varying attitudes towards the prisoners. Some harbored resentment and suspicion, viewing the POWs as embodiments of the enemy. However, others were more welcoming, seeing the POWs as individuals caught in the tides of history rather than as enemy combatants. This spectrum of attitudes provided the POWs with a nuanced understanding of American society, one that was not monolithic in its perceptions and judgments. It is important to contextualize these experiences within the broader framework of POW treatment in the United States. The Geneva Convention of 1929 outlined the rights of prisoners of war, emphasizing humane treatment and the provision of adequate living conditions. The United States, largely adhering to these principles, sought to use POW labor in a manner that would not only aid the war effort, but also provide prisoners with constructive engagement. This approach was not purely altruistic. It was reflective of a strategic aim to rehabilitate and re-educate, preparing POWs for eventual reintegration into civilian life post-war. The American strategy was one of transformation, seeking to dismantle the ideological conditioning of Nazi indoctrination and replace it with democratic ideals. Educational programs at Camp McCoy played a significant role in this process. With the assistance of the Red Cross and other organizations, initiatives were launched to teach POWs about democratic values, international cooperation, and peaceful coexistence. These programs aimed to dismantle the ideological conditioning of Nazi indoctrination, providing prisoners with alternative perspectives on governance and society. While the effectiveness of such programs varied, they were indicative of a broader American strategy to influence the prisoners' worldview. The educational initiatives were not only about imparting knowledge, but also about fostering critical thinking and encouraging the POWs to question the totalitarian doctrines they had been taught. Recreation, facilitated by organizations like the YMCA, was another key component of the POW experience. Sports, music, and arts were encouraged, not only to alleviate the monotony of camp life, but also to foster a sense of community and normalcy. In this light, the cleanup assignments at baseball games took on additional significance. They were not merely labor. They were an extension of an educational and cultural immersion program, subtly reinforcing the values and norms of American society. Through these activities, the POWs were exposed to the diversity of American culture, gaining insights into the values of individualism, freedom, and community that underpinned it. As the end of the war approached, the focus at Camp McCoy and other POW camps shifted towards repatriation. The logistics of returning prisoners to their home countries were complex, involving diplomatic negotiations and careful coordination. For the German POWs, the prospect of returning home was fraught with uncertainty. Germany, devastated by years of war, faced significant challenges in rebuilding its society and economy. The experiences of the POWs in the United States, including their exposure to American culture and values, would influence their reintegration processes in varied and unpredictable ways. Some might return with a new appreciation for democratic ideals, while others might struggle to reconcile their experiences with the reality of post-war Germany. The long-term impact of these wartime experiences on the German POWs remains an area of historical inquiry. While some prisoners may have retained their pre-war beliefs, others likely embraced new perspectives, influenced by their time in America. The exposure to a society that balanced wartime demands with civilian life presented a compelling contrast to the total war environment of Nazi Germany. It highlighted the possibility of a different way of living, one where cultural and recreational pursuits could coexist with national defense. This exposure may have planted the seeds of change, contributing to the broader process of democratization and reconstruction in post-war Germany. In examining the story of German POWs at Camp McCoy, the broader themes of resilience, adaptation, and cultural exchange emerge. These prisoners, caught in the complexities of a global conflict, experienced a microcosm of American life that challenged their preconceptions and broadened their horizons. The narrative underscores the intricate dynamics of wartime interactions and the potential for shared human experiences to transcend ideological barriers. The POW's journey from incredulity to understanding reflects the broader potential for cultural exchange to foster empathy and mutual respect. The contrast between American and German wartime experiences, as seen through the lens of sports and recreation, offers valuable insights into the cultural and ideological underpinnings of each society. It raises questions about the role of leisure and culture in sustaining national morale and the ways in which societies adapt to the demands of war. For the German POWs, the lessons learned during their time in America would resonate long after their return to a war-torn Europe, contributing to the complex tapestry of post-war reconciliation and rebuilding. Their experiences highlight the transformative power of cultural exposure and the enduring impact of human connections formed in the most unlikely of circumstances. The story of German POWs at Camp McCoy is a testament to the enduring human spirit and the capacity for understanding amidst conflict. It serves as a reminder of the shared bonds that unite disparate peoples, even in times of division and strife. As historians continue to explore these narratives, the experiences of these prisoners offer a poignant reflection on the intersection of war, culture, and humanity. Their journey from enemy combatants to individuals exposed to new ways of thinking and living underscores the potential for human resilience and adaptability in the face of adversity. The experience of German prisoners of war, POWs, at Camp McCoy, Wisconsin during World War II was a remarkable chapter in the history of cultural exchange and ideological confrontation. As these men found themselves thousands of miles from home, in a foreign land that was both alien and instructive, they embarked on a journey that would challenge their preconceived notions and offer them new perspectives on life, society, and the world at large. Upon arrival at Camp McCoy, the German POWs were greeted by a landscape and lifestyle markedly different from what they had known. The camp, situated in the rural heart of Wisconsin, was a far cry from the urban or war-ravaged environments many of them had left behind. The POWs were quickly assigned to various work assignments, which not only served the economic needs of the local community, but also immersed them in everyday American life. Among their tasks, the POWs found themselves working in agriculture and participating in post-event cleanup at local sports stadiums. These assignments, especially those involving sports events, became a profound source of cultural exposure. The POWs' exposure to American culture was most poignant during their assignments at baseball games. Baseball, often dubbed America's pastime, was a cultural phenomenon that captivated the nation. The POWs, unfamiliar with this sport, were immediately struck by the sheer number of attendees and the vibrant atmosphere that surrounded the games. As they entered the stadiums, they were met with a sensory overload. The cheers of tens of thousands of spectators, the crack of the bat, and the lively chatter of families and friends gathered to enjoy the game. The sight of families, workers, and students coming together to share in the simple joy of a baseball game was a stark contrast to the militaristic and propaganda-laden spectacles the POWs had known in Nazi Germany. In Germany, large gatherings often served as platforms for political propaganda, infused with nationalistic fervor and orchestrated to reinforce the regime's ideologies. Here in America, however, the POWs observed a gathering that seemed to exist purely for enjoyment and leisure. The absence of political overtones was puzzling yet refreshing for the POWs, who were accustomed to the expectation that public events served the state's interests. The guards overseeing the POWs played a crucial role in explaining the cultural nuances of these events. They described sports not as a mere distraction from the war, but as an integral part of American life, a sentiment that underscored the nation's ability to maintain a semblance of normalcy amidst global conflict. This realization was pivotal for the German POWs. In their homeland, war had consumed all aspects of life, leaving little room for leisure or personal enjoyment. Resources were scarce, and public life was dominated by the demands of the war effort. The POWs began to understand that America's approach to the war was fundamentally different. The United States, with its vast resources and industrial capabilities, was able to sustain both its military operations and its civilian life. This capacity for balance was a revelation, challenging the POWs' preconceived notions about the nature of wartime life in America. It offered them a glimpse into a society where individual freedom and quality of life were cherished even in times of conflict. The cultural exchange at Camp McCoy was further enriched by the educational programs offered to the POWs. These programs, designed to promote democratic ideals and critical thinking, were part of a broader strategy aimed at re-educating the POWs. Classes in English, American history, and political systems were offered, providing the prisoners with insights into the democratic processes and societal structures of their captor nation. The educational efforts were informed by the belief that exposure to American values and ways of life could influence the POWs' perspectives, potentially fostering a more democratic outlook upon their return to Germany. For many POWs, the combination of work assignments and educational programs facilitated a gradual shift in their understanding of American society. The contrast between the two nations' approaches to wartime life became increasingly clear. While Germany had mobilized every aspect of society for the war, leading to widespread deprivation and hardship, America demonstrated an ability to compartmentalize, preserving elements of civilian life even as it engaged in a global conflict. As the war drew to a close, the focus at Camp McCoy began to shift towards the repatriation of the POWs. The experiences they had accrued during their time in America were likely to play a role in their reintegration into post-war Germany. The exposure to American culture, particularly through sports and education, had provided them with a broader perspective on the world and the potential for societal organization beyond the authoritarian model they had known. The German POWs' time in the United States underscored the transformative potential of cultural exposure. Through their interactions with American society, they gained insights into democratic values and the importance of civilian life, even amidst the backdrop of war. This experience, marked by the stark contrast between their homeland and their captor nation, offered a unique lens through which to view the ideological and cultural dichotomies of the era. In the broader context of World War II, the story of the German POWs at Camp McCoy reflects the complexities of cultural exchange and ideological confrontation. The exposure to American sports and societal values served as a microcosm of the larger ideological battles being waged globally. It highlighted the capacity for human connection and understanding across cultural divides, even in times of conflict. As the POWs prepared for their eventual return to Germany, the lessons learned during their time in America would likely influence their perspectives on democracy, society, and the possibilities for a post-war future. Through the lens of historical analysis, the experiences of the German POWs at Camp McCoy provide valuable insights into the cultural dynamics of World War II. The juxtaposition of American and German approaches to wartime life underscores the broader ideological struggles of the period, offering a window into the transformative power of cultural exposure and human interaction. This narrative serves as a reminder of the enduring impact of such exchanges, shaping the outlooks and aspirations of individuals as they navigate the complexities of war and peace. The German POWs at Camp McCoy not only witnessed a different way of life, but also carried back with them the seeds of democratic thought and the appreciation for a society that valued individual freedoms and cultural diversity. In summary, the story of the German POWs at Camp McCoy is a testament to the power of cultural exchange in bridging ideological divides. It highlights the potential for human understanding and growth, even amidst the adversities of war. The lessons learned by these POWs during their time in America would reverberate long after their return to Germany, contributing to the broader post-war reconstruction and reconciliation efforts that would shape the future of Europe. As the weeks turned into months at Camp McCoy, the German prisoners began to adapt and adjust to the rhythms of American life, a life that was paradoxically thriving amidst the global turmoil of World War II. The German POWs found themselves in a unique situation, far removed from the front lines of battle, and instead immersed in a world where democracy was not just an abstract concept, but a lived experience. It was a world that piqued their interest and ignited a curiosity about the culture and values that seemed to sustain the American way of life during such challenging times. A significant turning point for many of these prisoners was their work at the local baseball stadium. Baseball, a quintessentially American sport, became a symbol of the country's leisurely pursuits and community spirit. The POWs were astonished by the enthusiasm and passion that surrounded the game, observing how it brought people together, transcending social and economic barriers. This experience served as an initial spark, prompting many of the POWs to seek a deeper understanding of the culture that not only entertained, but also united its people in a shared sense of identity and pride. The camp administration recognized the potential benefits of fostering this curiosity and saw an opportunity to introduce the POWs to democratic ideals and the nuances of American life. They implemented educational programs that were designed to open the minds of the prisoners, offering classes in English language, American history, and civics. These classes were often led by fellow German POWs who, either by personal conviction or previous exposure, were sympathetic to democratic principles and eager to share these ideals with their compatriots. The English language classes were particularly popular as they provided the POWs with a vital tool to navigate and understand their new environment more fully. Mastering the language was not just about communication, it was a gateway to accessing a wealth of literature, media, and ideas that were previously beyond their reach. The American history courses took the prisoners on a journey from the nation's founding, through its struggles and triumphs, to the contemporary period, emphasizing the enduring principles of freedom and democracy. In the civics classes, POWs learned about the structure of the American government, gaining insight into the separation of powers, the checks and balances system, and the paramount importance of individual rights and the rule of law. These concepts were foreign to many of the POWs, who had lived under a regime that prioritized state control and disseminated propaganda as a means of maintaining power. Through these lessons, the prisoners were introduced to a narrative that championed individual liberties and civic responsibility, encouraging them to think critically about governance and their role within it. The camp's library quickly became a sanctuary for those POWs who wished to explore these new ideas further. It was a place where they could lose themselves in the pages of classic literature and contemporary works, gaining insights into the diverse intellectual landscape of America. Biographies and historical accounts were particularly favored as they provided real-life examples of individuals who had shaped the American ethos of innovation, resilience, and determination. These stories offered the POWs a glimpse into the spirit of perseverance and the capacity for reinvention that characterized American society. Initially, many prisoners approached these educational opportunities with skepticism, wary of the potential for propaganda and manipulation. However, as they continued to engage with the material and participate in discussions, some began to question the narratives they had been taught in Germany. Conversations among the POWs grew more nuanced, with debates about the merits of different political systems and the potential for democratic reform in their homeland becoming more frequent. These discussions were not limited to the confines of the classroom, but spilled over into the daily life of the camp, influencing how the prisoners perceived their surroundings and their future. Interactions with American guards and civilians further enriched the POWs' understanding of American culture. While these interactions were often informal and unscripted, they provided a valuable opportunity for both sides to learn from one another. The guards, many of whom were young men not much older than the prisoners themselves, were curious about the POWs and eager to share their own perspectives. Conversations ranged from discussions about daily life and family to deeper topics such as politics and philosophy, highlighting both the differences and similarities between the two groups. For the German POWs, witnessing the sense of normalcy and community in American civilian life was a revelation. Despite the ongoing war, American society appeared to function with a degree of stability and optimism that was absent in war-torn Europe. The POWs observed how Americans, while acutely aware of the sacrifices and hardships of war, did not allow these challenges to overshadow their daily lives. This resilience, coupled with a capacity for joy and celebration, was something that many prisoners came to admire and aspire to emulate. As the war drew to a close, the prospect of repatriation loomed large for the German POWs. The impending return to Germany was met with a mix of emotions. On one hand, there was the excitement and anticipation of reuniting with family and friends, and the opportunity to rebuild lives disrupted by years of conflict. On the other hand, there was apprehension about returning to a country devastated by war, a nation facing the monumental task of reconstruction and reconciliation. The knowledge and experiences gained at Camp McCoy presented both an opportunity and a challenge for these men. They had been exposed to ideas that could contribute to the rebuilding of a democratic Germany, yet they faced the stark reality of a homeland grappling with defeat and economic ruin. The seeds of doubt and reflection that had been planted during their time at the camp would play a crucial role in shaping their perspectives and actions in the post-war years. In the aftermath of the war, Many former POWs who had been exposed to democratic ideals at Camp McCoy became advocates for political and social reform in Germany. Their experiences at the camp had equipped them with a new understanding of governance and civic responsibility, which they sought to apply in the reconstruction of their homeland. These individuals played an instrumental role in rebuilding communities and establishing democratic institutions, contributing to Germany's transformation into a stable democratic nation. The story of the German POWs at Camp McCoy serves as a powerful testament to the transformative power of cultural exchange and education. It underscores the potential for exposure to different ways of life, to challenge deeply held beliefs and encourage critical thinking. The lessons learned at Camp McCoy extended far beyond American sports or the English language. They encompassed the values of freedom, resilience, and community that underpin democratic societies. As historians continue to reflect on this period, the experiences of the POWs at Camp McCoy offer valuable insights into the processes of ideological change and the potential for human connection even in the midst of conflict. The camp was not merely a holding place for enemy combatants, but a site of learning and transformation, illustrating the complex interplay between war and culture. In the broader tapestry of World War II history, the story of Camp McCoy is a poignant reminder that even in times of strife, there are opportunities for understanding and growth. The German POW's journey from bewilderment to a deeper appreciation of American life highlights the enduring impact of cultural exchange in shaping post-war reconciliation and rebuilding efforts. As these men returned to Germany, they carried with them lessons that would influence their roles in the country's recovery and its eventual emergence as a stable democratic nation. The legacy of their experiences at Camp McCoy continues to resonate, offering a hopeful narrative of transformation and the enduring power of education and understanding in bridging divides and fostering peace. As World War II came to an end and the process of repatriation began, the German prisoners of war at Camp McCoy prepared to return to a Germany that had been irrevocably changed by years of conflict. The logistical challenges of repatriation were significant, involving coordination between American and German authorities to ensure the safe and orderly return of thousands of prisoners. For the POWs, the journey home was filled with anticipation and uncertainty as they contemplated the future of their homeland and their place within it. Upon their return to Germany, the former POWs faced a nation in ruins, with cities devastated by bombing and infrastructure in disarray. The contrast between the stability and prosperity they had observed in America and the harsh realities of post-war Germany was stark. Yet, the experiences and insights gained during their captivity offered a unique perspective that many would draw upon during the reconstruction efforts. The exposure to American culture and democratic ideals at Camp McCoy had left an indelible mark on many of the former prisoners. Some became advocates for democratic reforms, contributing to the political and social rebuilding of Germany. Their understanding of democratic governance, civic responsibility, and the importance of individual freedoms informed their efforts to establish new institutions and practices that would support a stable and democratic society. The process of reintegration was not without its challenges. Former POWs often faced suspicion and stigma upon their return as communities grappled with the legacy of the war and the complexities of reconciliation. Nevertheless, the shared experiences of captivity and cultural exchange fostered a sense of resilience and adaptability among the returning soldiers. They became part of the broader movement towards democratization and recovery, playing a crucial role in Germany's transformation. The legacy of the German POWs at Camp McCoy extends beyond their individual contributions to post-war Germany. Their experiences highlight the potential for cultural exposure to challenge preconceived notions and foster new ways of thinking. The story of these prisoners serves as a testament to the enduring impact of education and cultural exchange in bridging divides and promoting understanding. In examining the broader historical context, the narrative of the POWs at Camp McCoy provides valuable insights into the dynamics of cultural exchange during wartime. It underscores the complexities of ideological confrontation and the capacity for human connection to transcend conflict. The experiences of these POWs reflect the transformative power of exposure to different cultures and the potential for such experiences to influence individual and collective futures. As time passes and the events of World War II become part of the historical record, the story of the German POWs at Camp McCoy remains a poignant reminder of the potential for growth and change even in the most challenging circumstances. It illustrates the enduring human capacity for resilience and adaptation, offering a hopeful narrative of transformation and the power of understanding in fostering reconciliation and peace.